Hi Maaret, thanks a lot for being the interview on A1K blog. Tell us a few words about yourself.
My name is Maaret Pyhäjärvi and I'm from Helsinki, Finland. I've been working with testing for about 20 years in various roles. I've been a tester, I've been a test manager, I've been a testing consultant, I've been a researcher of testing at the university, and I've also been teaching testing both at the university and for various companies for quite many years. Nowadays I kind of think of myself as an employee with an entrepreneurial attitude, basically meaning that I've been changing companies, my employers, every 2 to 3 years, and I've had a chance, kind of like a traveling consultant, except I've been an employee, to see different companies, see different contexts, and see how testing happens, what kind of testing practices we've been using there. For the last 3 years, I've worked for a company called Granlund in a product development team of about 10 people. In that team, I'm the only tester. I'm actually the first tester who has ever joined that team, and I'm also the only woman in that team.
You call yourself an employee with entrepreneurial attitude. What does it actually mean, and what about the employers? Can this kind of attitude be a problem to them?
Well, I identify as a context-driven tester, and it means for me personally that I wanted to learn as much as I can about different kinds of contexts, different kinds of projects, different kinds of products, and different kinds of people doing the testing. So I wanted to spend time in a product development team as the only tester with developers, like I do now. I wanted to spend time in a team of testers where we share the work somehow, split the work somehow, and need to find our ways of working together. And I wanted to spend time in an acceptance testing team in a customer organization where I'm actually the only so-called professional tester in the group. And I wanted to see both agile software development and traditional software development and how testing is organized in those. To organize my career for this purpose, I have basically two choices. I can be a consultant, changing customers every now and then, or I can be an employee, changing companies every now and then. And I've chosen the latter. The reason basically I've chosen the latter is the experience that I've had. When I was a consultant, I used to have a lot of different customers at the same time, and I couldn't really concentrate on any of them, and I didn't particularly like that. And the other reason is that when I wasn't a consultant and I was working with 2 other consultants, all the 3 of us as test managers for different organizations for a common project, there was a steering group meeting where the 2 others, the contractors, were kicked out basically based on the idea that they are competitors, whereas I could join in to the meeting, and we were making very big decisions about the future of the project based on information that I was able to deliver as an employee. So it was kind of enforcing my idea of being rather than an employee than a contractor. My employers, so far at least, have been pretty satisfied with this arrangement. What they get is me cross-pollinating ideas from organization to another, understanding the context better, knowing what kind of things to apply where, and knowing all the options that we might have on how we can arrange our testing. So they've been pretty satisfied on that. And also, it's not a bad thing for them either that as an employee, I tend to have an employee rate, whereas a consultant, I would tend to have a higher consultant rate. So they get a good tester, a good employee, an active person for a little bit lower price and for a time frame that we agree in advance.
Why do you think it is important to involve testers on the initial stages to assess the need of some application or system features?
Being involved with product development, I've learned a lot about doing things right, or actually doing right things more than doing things right. So first of all, I've learned that we need to learn to build features that people actually use, and we need to question the need of those features. For example, in my team, we were creating this feature called document groups. And because we were creating this, we needed to leave out other features. It took a significant amount of effort. The developers would work on it, I would work on it as a tester, we would talk about it, we would build it, and we would make it okay so that we can actually deliver it into production. About 6 months in production, we were looking at production and looking at metrics and analytics from there. And we learned that actually nobody had been using the feature by that time. And there were no real plans of taking the feature actually into use. So we had built a feature that would never bring back any of the value. It was actually just causing us extra work, extra maintenance, without being useful for the end users at all. And I think we need to learn to break the illusions about these kind of things as testers as well. Not only about the bugs that we have in production, but also making sure that we're efficiently being able to deliver things forward. And the other thing that I've learned about early involvement is that actually ideas are really cheap, whereas implementation, including testing of course, that's actually pretty expensive. So if we can actually work on the ideas, we can either remove the ideas and postpone them to a time when we actually need them, or never do them at all. That's good. And also, whenever we take something into implementation, it's good if we know exactly, or as well as possible, what we're about to do. So for example, we were doing this feature, and I wasn't involved early on as a tester. It was just the business people and the developers having a discussion about that. And when it came to me to test, I actually identified that it didn't work for the purpose at all. We redid that, and it still came back to me as something that didn't really work at all. And only on the third time we actually managed to match whatever the end users were trying to say, trying to explain that they needed. So I feel that testers can help with these kind of gaps. There's this quote that I kind of like. J.B. Rainsberger, one of developer, he says kind of like that all the programming rests on the idea that we have it right until we discover that we have it wrong. Whereas Michael Bolton kind of added to that all the testing then rests on the assumption that we have it wrong until we've exhausted ideas of experiencing it. And with these kind of opposing views, it's kind of no wonder that programmers and testers really need each other.
You say that you upgraded yourself from a test manager to a tester. That sounds a bit odd. Isn't it about going backwards?
I am sure it sounds counterintuitive to many people, but I really believe that it was an upgrade. I used to work in this software company that was doing security products, and we had just been through an agile transition. We were still kind of in the middle of it. I was a test manager, and we had the testers in the cross-functional teams. I was facilitating work amongst the teams and making sure we would try to cover some of or many of the gaps that we had between the teams. At some point I started realizing that self-organization in the teams doesn't work quite as well as I would like it to. And I realized that a big part of it was because of me in my test manager role. So I changed my role. I announced that there will be no more test manager. I'm stopping doing that, and I'm using all of the energy that I have on kind of like just measuring or showing how the teams are doing. I'm not going to do things for them anymore. So they need to actually actively take that role. And since I had a lot of extra time, I could either use it on helping them, answering their questions if they had any, or I could use it on participating in testing in the teams. And that's what I chose to do. So I joined in as a tester, and I could see over time how much better the teams were doing when I wasn't being a manager for them, but I was just being a colleague, one of the testers, a senior one, of course, so I could actually show some of the things that I would do, and we could kind of cross-pollinate ideas there as well. Another thing that I learned in a later project about the idea of why actually it's a promotion to be a tester over being a test manager is that when you're actually delivering real empirical data that is founded on actual experience of using the software, you are much more powerful that way. I was working again as a test manager in an organization that was basically a calculation machine. It was supposed to calculate amounts of money, and at the point I was in the project, it was working 100% according to specification. Unfortunately, the specifications were so wrong that none of the things worked quite as we would like them to work in production. So the end sums that was supposed to calculate, they were all incorrect and we couldn't use it for any real use. I was trying to fight this as a test manager with the tools that a test manager has. I could talk, I could try to convince people, I could try to show the difference between the 100% and the 0% in different coverages, but I ended up losing the fight. Whereas other people who approached the same problem from the point of view that with the very limited time they had available, they wouldn't use the test managerial tools, but they would use the hands-on testing tools. They were much stronger in their arguments because they can actually show, again, with the same time used on a very different thing, not the managerial things, but the actual hands-on testing things. They could show that the end results were incorrect and drive the project forward in a much more concrete way. So from these two different experiences, what I concluded is that I actually want to be a tester. I don't want to be a test manager. I can also bring in the managerial experiences, the big picture, the strategic perspective things. But I contribute best by both doing and knowing those and actually doing hands-on testing for the benefit of the project. So having the empirical information available, it's so much more powerful than anything you can do, which is collecting information from others, that I believe that especially in the new agile development world, we should actively look into how to become testers who have this big perspective, who hands-on do work on the projects instead of just stay outside and look at it from a managerial perspective.
Testers and developers are like two sides of one coin. Still, what about being a tester in a team of developers?
I'm really enjoying the close collaboration with the developers, being part of the development team. Of course, I am the only tester. I'm also the only woman, so as such, I'm somehow very different, sometimes feeling a bit alone with some of the things that I'm doing. But the collaboration, the things that we can accomplish together with the developers, I feel that's very amazing, very gratifying, something that I really want to see myself doing also in the future. For example, I remember very early on in the project, a product manager coming to the cubicle area where my team is working, and he would start to shake my hand, and in the middle of that he would start telling that he was so grateful for the idea that he had just experienced trying to test the product. His testing was called acceptance testing for our organization. He was trying to test the product, and for the first time when he was testing it, it actually worked. And it was a difference from the past. He had long experience with developing products in this particular organization, and previously with just the business people and the developers, they had not been able to have software that works at the acceptance testing phase. And now me together with the team, the developers, with the close collaboration, we were actually bridging that gap so that we together were able to bring a lot better quality, the quality that he was expecting, and he was very happy about that.
Do you think it is possible to learn developers to build quality? Or maybe quality is the thing that cannot be learned?
I think the idea that developers couldn't test, it's a myth, and it's a self-enforcing myth also. When it's been told to developers, it kind of creates the idea and the actual practice where developers don't try because they will fail anyway. In general, I believe actually that quality is built by developers. Testers bring in quality information. If the quality in start of testing is really bad, it's very hard to fix quality later on. And also, if nobody reacts to the information, you won't get a quality product anyway. So the developers have a very big role on the quality work. But on the testing side, something that I've learned recently in my current project is that it really is so that developers can test. What we do is we have these demo sessions basically, where a developer shows me the feature just when they think they've completed it and they are ready to have it tested by me. They are responsible for testing it themselves already before I join, because there's 9 developers and just one of me. So we're kind of trying to split the testing work so that I would mostly test things that are already working as much as possible. So the developers, they show me the features in a demo setting. But the demo setting is actually so that they're kind of testing it in front of me. And what I tend to do is that I'm just quiet and sit next to them when they show it and when they test it. And what I've started to observe is that me just being there quietly watching means that they change into the context of testing. And in that mindset viewpoint, they start seeing problems. So it's kind of interesting to see how somebody who claims to have tested their own system find problems in the very same system, very same feature, just by me sitting quietly next to them. So I'm pretty sure there's something else preventing developers from testing than their actual skills on testing. So maybe it's again a skill also, this doing the context switch and paying enough attention to the testing perspective so that they can deliver. But together, I feel testers in particular, are kind of like a productivity mechanism. So together you can do things faster, you can do things in a more efficient way.
Maaret, thanks a lot for this interesting conversation. That was so nice to talk to you, and we hope we do it again to discuss some more interesting things.